Live streaming is on. Okay.
Hold on, I gotta get to my dashboard. Hold on here.
So yeah, I just see your million windows.
Okay. So what do I need to do to stop? Should I hit stop sharing?
You're sharing your screen? Because if you're not sharing your screen, then you won't be able to see what's on the screen.
So you can you see?
Have to bring up whatever your document is.
Can you see the document?
Not yet. A little bit behind.
Let me see here. I'm trying to figure out.
Now I see it.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
I'm not getting any weird, like, tunnel things.
Okay. You know what? I realized all I had to do was minimize my 8x8 and then just.
Yeah.
Okay.
I am seeing, because you're not in 8x8, I am seeing your little 8x8 window.
But
in the top right.
Okay. Yeah.
Middle right.
Yeah, I got.
Just make sure that when you do it, you move that out of the way.
Okay.
That would be your video.
So right now you can just see the document.
So yeah, right now I just see the document and that little window at the top, and it says 8x8 is sharing. You can click hide at the bottom of that.
Okay. All right. Okay.
But yeah, all I see is the document, and I can hear you perfectly clear.
Okay. Perfect.
Yes, that's
all right. Okay. Thanks.
You got it.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
All right, if anyone's here, good morning. We'll get started here in a couple minutes. I'm just going to wait till about 10 o'clock, so it's like 9:51. So around 10 o'clock, we'll go ahead and get started. This is just, it's social studies, and these are questions right off of the test. So dude, he's got to take off my. Okay, you guys, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Welcome. I mentioned a little bit before, this is social studies, and I've got 5 or 6 questions that come right off the task practice test. So this first one is kind of a bar graph, a pie graph. We've kind of practiced these. The only thing different about this one is there are no percentages that basically connected with how much money is spent by state and local governments. So these are what our tax dollars go to. So you can see education, transportation, public safety, environment and housing, utilities, government administration, interest on general debt, and others. And down at the bottom, it says, according to the graph, state and local governments spend the most on. So this is just really the eyeball test. You're going to look at which one of these is the biggest section of the circle. And I know it's a little bit dark up at the top for public welfare and other, but if you look at education, you can see that is the biggest section of this pie graph. And if you go down to the bottom, according to the graph, state and local governments spend the most on it. It says building roads, funding public schools, supporting police and fire, paying salaries of government workers. It doesn't say education, but you can connect funding public schools. That would be education. So since education is the biggest pie section of the pie, it would be B. We spend most of our money on state and local on funding public schools or education. So your answer would be B, okay? So let's move on to the next one. I'm just gonna scroll down a little bit for you guys. And this one is read the information in the box, then answer the question. Okay, so it says, nationalism is a feeling of pride that people have in their country, often with the large belief that it is better than other countries. It also refers to a desire among a large group of people to form a separate independent nation based on shared culture, language, and history. So the question asks, based on the information in the box, which of these events most likely occurred because of nationalism? Okay, so you want to go back up and make sure we really understand what nationalism is. It's a feeling of pride they have in their country, often with the belief that is better than other countries. It also refers to a desire among a large group of people to form a separate independent nation based on shared culture, language, and history. Okay, so you have a pretty good idea of what nationalism is. So we're going down to the answers now. Spain established laws to protect private business. Okay, there's nothing really in that statement about private business. So I'm pretty sure we'd cross off A because it really doesn't have anything to do with business. Okay. The next one would be France went from being an agricultural nation to an industrial nation. That maybe, but you know, that's just basically how their economy is. And they're not really creating an independent nation based on shared culture, language, and history. So I probably would cross off B too. C talks about Italy went from being a loosely connected state to a unified nation. Okay, so basically if you look back up at that, to form a separate independent nation based on shared culture, language, and history. So they're going from loosely connected to a unified nation. That sounds pretty good, so maybe it's going to be C. And then D goes, the United States established the separation of church and state, which we did, but that really doesn't have anything to do with nationalism. So if we looked at these, your best answer is going to be C because it talks about Italy went from being a loosely connected state to a unified nation. And it talks about at the top, a large group of people formed separate independent nation. And that's what they did. They formed a unified nation. So based on the information, we're going to pick C. And basically, if you didn't get that right off the bat by crossing off A, B, and D, you're only be left with one. So that would probably be a good example of how we cross off answers we know that aren't right, and then we just get down to process of elimination. C is really the only one that makes sense, okay? So for number one, it's going to be C. Okay, let me scroll down a little bit more. We'll do number two now. Okay. So number two, read the information in the box and answer the question. Okay. Equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on the account of sex. Okay. So this is going to be about men and women. So those are the two sexes we have in our country, men and women. And this is the Equal Rights Amendment under Section 1. Okay. So it says, which statement is a reason that some women oppose the Equal Rights Amendment? Okay. It would decrease wages for both sexes. Probably not, because what it's saying is everyone needs to be treated equally regardless of their sex. So it wouldn't really decrease wages. Hopefully what it's trying to do is raise the wage for women. So women probably wouldn't be opposed to that. Okay. B, it would change gender roles in the country. And what gender roles are, that might be something you have to think about. So what was the traditional role of women in our country probably up until, the 1960s? Most women were stay-at-home moms. They took care of the kids, and the husband went to work. So if everyone is basically, you can't be denied rights for being a woman, that might allow some women to go in the workplace, because for a job, regardless if you're a man or woman, according to this, you should be basically hired on your qualifications, not on your sex. So that's something to think about, okay? Number three, it would afford fewer rights. It would afford women fewer rights than men. We know that's not true. It's the exact opposite. It would force employed women out of the workforce. No, it would do the exact opposite. It's trying to get women in the workforce because it's saying women have the exact same rights as men. Okay, so we probably crossed off A, C, and D. So that leaves us B. And some women are against that because some women did like their role as being the homemaker, being a stay-at-home mom. Not all, but some women are comfortable in that role. They like nurturing their children. So that's probably why some women were against it, because some women actually like that role of being the stay-at-home mom. And once again, it's not all, and this isn't 100%, but it's just asking you what the best answer would be. So when we looked at that, it's about, equality for women. So you crossed off A because it wouldn't decrease wages for both sexes. You crossed off C because it would afford women fewer rights than men. This is saying the exact opposite, that they have equal rights. And it would force women out of the workforce. No, what it's trying to do is allow women into the workforce. Okay, so that just leaves B. It would change gender roles in the country. Okay, maybe the mom or the woman would be the breadwinner and the dad would stay home. And that's not really a traditional role in our country. We think of usually men going to work and women staying at home. So it would be B. Okay, it would change the gender roles in the country. Okay, now let's go on to number three. This we did in class, and these are just two pictures. So a lot of times on the test, you're going to have to look at pictures. So this says, in the 19th and early 20th century, so that'd be like the late 1880s, 1890s into the 1900s. So century is always, 100 years ahead. Right now it's 2020, so we're in the 21st century. This says many manufacturers in the United States use child labor to create products. Look at these photographs and answer questions 3 and 4. So the top one, it says 2 young girls at spoolers at a cotton mill located in Evansville, Indiana. And the one below that is 2 young boys at a textile mill in Cherryville, North Carolina. The top one, they're in cotton. Textile is the same. They're making some sort of clothing. Okay, so you have women in the top one, and you have children in the bottom one. Okay, so you go on to the next page where the question is. Okay, so we'll read the first one. Number 3. It said the progressive movement occurred during the early 20th century in the United States. That's, right around 1900. Progressives worked to regulate big business to protect the rights of workers and consumers and to create better living conditions for the poor. Which statement explains why the practices shown in the photographs led the progressives to take action? They hurt the image of the nation. That may be, probably, if those pictures got out of women and children in the United States working, other countries might look down on us. That's plausible. That's they took jobs from adult laborers. Maybe, probably not. If you were an adult and wanted to work, you probably could get a job. They risked the welfare of children. Okay. Now that one really kind of stands out because, when you're really young, I mean, if you look at those pictures, I'll go back up. They're probably teenagers. And as a teenager, do you really want to be working in a factory in like kind of those machines where you get your hand caught, your clothing caught? It's kind of dangerous, okay? And also, when you're a teenager, the expectation is you're probably getting an education, okay? So if you're working, you're probably not going to school. So when I look at that one kind of stands out to me. And then D, they gave children educational opportunities. Obviously, if they're working, they're not in school. So we know D, probably, we cross that one out. So then we cross out B because they really didn't take jobs from adult laborers. So that leaves us with A or C. And I think the biggest thing is they wanted to protect the rights of workers and consumers. That was progressives. And children really basically working in a factory, they were probably paid a lot less than adult workers. They worked long hours. They did the dangerous jobs. So when we look back at that, C would be the best answer. They really risk the welfare of children when you're working in a factory. Okay. And now we're going to go to the last one. Why was child labor used during this time period? Children laborers were less expensive, okay? B says child labor could work longer hours. Child labor is easier to find than adult workers is C. And child workers would follow directions better than adult workers. Okay. You might not know anything about this progressive era, we did cover it in class, but the one that makes the most sense is, I would say A, because, as a child, you're not going to tell your boss, pay me more, they just get rid of you, and your family needed money, you were probably willing to work for anything they offered you, okay? Child laborers would follow directions better than adult workers. Maybe, but that's probably not the best answer. Child laborers are easier to find than adult workers. No, I mean, like I said, if you were an adult and wanted a job, you could find one. Child laborers could work longer hours. I don't think there's any proof that, a child has more stamina than an adult. So that would probably, bring it to A or maybe D, but I think we crossed D out. A would probably be your best answer, even if you don't know anything about it. It just, I think, from what we talked about in class, you would understand that, children usually get paid less than adults. And like I said, the children probably wouldn't complain, especially if their family needed money. They would probably take whatever they were paid. So that's why the progressive movement, it wanted to protect the rights of workers and to create better living conditions for the poor. So obviously some of these factories were unsafe. There were workforce accidents all the time. And obviously we talked about children wanting to get an education. That's probably the most important thing. So we look at all four of these, we're going to come to the conclusion that child laborers were less expensive. Okay. So these are just typical kind of questions that would be on the test. Okay. And like I said, the best thing to do if you don't know for sure is just go and cross off the ones that you don't know. Okay. And then for this one, for example, if you got down to only 2 answers and you weren't sure, what you've done is, if you have no idea, you've given yourself a 50% chance to get the right answer just by crossing off the 2 that you don't know. And if you didn't cross anyone off, then you're just guessing 1 out of 4, you're at a 25%. So the best thing to do is just cross off ones you don't know, and then just think about whatever answers you have left. And if you have to, you make the best choice that you can. It's not perfect, because if you don't know, you don't know, but at least you've given yourself a better chance to get the correct answer. All right, that is it for today. I want to thank all of you for, checking in with me. I'm going to be off tomorrow. I think Casey's going to post some stuff, but we will be doing some more live classes next week. So I think we're going to send out text or email explaining kind of when all the classes are. I'll go ahead and post this on the Social Studies Google Classroom. You guys have a nice day and have a nice weekend, and I'll talk to you next week.